Hi there, it's Jermaine from LiveWellZone.com, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing 10 tips to help you eat healthy on a budget. Now, I am making this video because we are all going through rough times, economically, financially, and generally speaking, during those times, it could be tempting to also cut back on some of the healthy foods that you're eating just out of necessity. So I wanted to make this video to give you some ideas that can hopefully help you budget-wise to still stay healthy, because truth of the matter is now more than ever you need to have your health. You need to find ways to take charge of your health as naturally as possible, because that's really one of the few things you have control over is yourself and your health. The rest of it in the situation socially or politically is not fully in our control. Okay, so that's why I'm making this video, and I hope that these tips help. So tip number one is going to be to make your own plant-based milks. Now, one of the easiest to do is something like almond milk. My favorite method is, what I do is I get this 3-pound bag of almonds from Costco. That 3-pound bag only costs $13. Okay, now out of this $13 of almonds, I'm able to get a total of 256 ounces of almond milk. That's equivalent to 2 gallons. Okay, now just to give you an idea, if you were to try to find a truly clean brand of almond milk that doesn't have preservatives or anything artificial in it, you would be paying about $6 to $8 for 28 ounces only, which means to get the same amount, the 256 ounces that I get from this one bag, you would have to pay anywhere from about $54 to maybe even $72, and all it cost me was 13 bucks. So you definitely want to start making your own almond milk. And an extra tip is, when you make the almond milk, you're going to need a nut milk bag. You're going to squeeze the almond pulp. That almond pulp you can also keep, and you can dry that in the oven if you wanted to. That will make you almond meal. Now you can use almond meal in some of your baking recipes. You could also put it into things like oatmeal. You could also even put it into smoothie bowls, for example. Okay, so you can really stretch this one $13 bag of almonds and do a lot of different things with it. Tip number two is to be wise about which superfoods or superfood powders that you decide to buy. So a good example for you is that a little while back, I had a few local stores that had crazy prices on turmeric. Okay, now these are organic, so the prices were even more crazy. So they would sell, one store sold a pound of fresh turmeric for $12.99, another sold it for $18.99. But then those same stores would sell a pound of ginger for $5.99, right? Now, I bring this up because other than color, the fact of the matter is turmeric and ginger are quite close. They're basically rhizomes. Yes, there's some slight differences, but most of the health benefits you get from ginger, you can also get from turmeric, and vice versa. Okay, so you want to be mindful of those price differences, and if you need to pick, then go for the cheaper one, because a lot of those prices are really just marketing. Turmeric is a trendy, sexy thing. It's used in Ayurveda, which also again makes it more marketable. So there's a lot of marketing that just blows up those prices. All right, things like spirulina or chlorella, those are also tend to be more expensive than, say, something like wheatgrass. And of course, their nutritional composition is different. All right, but in terms of just general health, if you feel like you just can't afford some of those higher priced things like spirulina, then you can look at something cheaper like wheatgrass, for example. When it comes to some herbs like adaptogens are again very trendy from a marketing perspective, but a lot of what you get from adaptogens, you can also find alternatives. For example, you can do a combination of nervine herbs. So these are herbs that soothe the nervous system. A combination of nervine herbs and specific lifestyle changes together will ultimately get you to respond to stress better and handle stress better, which is what adaptogens are supposed to help you with. Okay, so there are always alternatives, especially when it comes to herbs. And a better option in this day and time would be for you to invest in a good book for about herbalism, just something for the household and for the family. Buy a good textbook and then use that as a reference. It will give you ideas and teach you to understand how you could potentially do some basic switches at home when it comes to your herbs. It's going to save you a lot of money. The third tip is to use more ingredients that are local to you. Okay, so here in the US, for example, if I'm looking to buy greens, kale is easy to find, collard greens are even easy to find. If I'm looking for fruits, grapes and apples and cantaloupe, those are very common and kind of just normal here. On the other hand, if I want to start using some more exotic things like dragon fruit, or if I want to start doing cherry moya or guava, now I start paying more, because those are technically speaking, those are either going to be imported, or even if they're grown here, they're kind of classified as exotic fruits, so you can pay significantly more. So just drop anything that basically is not really local to your area and just focus on stuff that is common, and that will help you to save some cash. Now, along the same lines, the fourth tip is to visit your local ethnic grocery stores. Okay, so if you really do want something that is more exotic, you might actually get a better price if you go to your local Asian market, or an African grocery store, or a Middle Eastern grocery store. You will generally find better prices for something. So for example, like coconuts, for a while I was always buying fresh coconuts, and I have an Asian Pacific market here. So if I were to go to my local grocery store to get organic coconuts, I would have had to pay $5 just for one coconut. Meanwhile, if I went to the Asian Pacific market, I would pay $22 for a case of 9 coconuts. It's a huge savings. Okay, so consider doing that. I remember even many years ago when I was living in Paris, I used to go to a Lebanese store because I could find a lot of spices and a lot of other ingredients for significantly cheaper there than I would at the mainstream store. So this can also be applicable to you even if you're not in the US. You definitely want to check out, like I said, those more ethnic grocery stores if you really, really want something that might be exotic, or you just want to do a price comparison to see what they have, because sometimes their prices are significantly better. Tip number 5 is to make your own treats and sweets and things of that nature. So whether it's muffins and granola bars, cakes, all that stuff, find your own recipes and make them at home, because anytime you try to buy clean cakes or cookies, you're usually paying a lot, and usually when you take a close look at the ingredients, it's really not that clean after all. So you'll do much better just making your own, and plus you have control over the ingredients. Tip number 6 is to buy a combination of organically grown and conventionally grown foods. So the truth of the matter is, eating organic has always been more expensive, and then now of course it's even more expensive. So if you really need to, it's a good idea to actually pick and choose the items, right? So when it comes to produce, for example, in general, if you are buying something where you eat the skin, then you would want to buy that organic. So maybe things like grapes and apples, where you're eating strawberries, for example, those tend to be better in organic form, because you're not going to have the residue of pesticides on the skin, right? So whereas for conventional stuff, for maybe things like bananas or pineapples, where you're not eating the skin, you could compromise and buy those conventionally, right? So and then you can also visit a website like ewg.org. They have a list that they put out every year for clean and dirty foods. So they have a clean 15 and a dirty dozen, and you can get that list and then use that as a reference when you are grocery shopping, so that you know which foods have more pesticide residue and which ones tend to have a little less. Now, tip number 7 is to use more frozen fruits and vegetables. Okay, so generally speaking, as long as the fruits and vegetables are grown well and they're plucked at the right time, there's not a huge difference nutritionally between the fresh version and the frozen version. But the big advantage is that usually the frozen versions can be cheaper. So for example, I do a lot of smoothies, a lot of blueberry smoothies. So I will buy a 3-pound bag of blueberries from Costco that will cost me approximately $8 to $9. I have done some shopping around the last week or so just to prepare for this content, and I saw that maybe it's one of the next best places I could find something like that was at Target. So Target, I believe, has it's either 2 or 2.5 pound bag of blueberries that are sold for approximately $7.99. Okay, so and again, that's organic. So I was looking just at the organic ones to try to see how they compare. So ultimately, if you really do want an organic, Costco is going to be the best place. And if you're not into organic, well, Costco still beats the price anyways, just because they sell everything in bulk. Okay, and that brings me to tip number 8, which is try as much as possible to buy everything in bulk. You'll be amazed at the savings. So let's talk about a few items. So spices, right? We all need spices in some form, and typically you will probably buy these types of spices. Now this bottle carries about 1.8 ounces of the spice. This one is a 1.62 ounce. Both of these cost me $5 to $6 each. All right. And then the other option is if you happen to have a grocery store. So I have a natural grocers where I live, and they sell their own brand. It's a generic brand. It's bulk pricing for spices. So this is, for example, cumin, and that is 5 ounces. This is also 5 ounces of coriander. I can also get like this 6-ounce bag of turmeric. Each of these cost me anywhere from about $3 to $6. Okay, so again, I could pay $3 to $6 to get 6 ounce, or I could pay $6 to only get 1.62 ounce if you're buying sort of these brand name bottles. Okay, so that's another way to save money when it comes to things like spices. Now, even better if you're into oatmeal. This is a 25-pound bag of oatmeal, right? And yes, it's a lot of oatmeal, but I make my own granola at home. Depending on the size of your household, this could take you through 6 months, more. It just depends on the size of your household and how much oatmeal how much oatmeal you use. Okay, but for me, it is a tremendous savings because I do so much with that. Not only do I use it to make my own granola, I will also use it sometimes in some pancake recipes. So I will take that and grind up the oats, and that becomes kind of my oat flour that I use in the recipe. So it's really just a huge savings for me, and finding good organic oats, that it's not that cheap. So if you shop from Bob's, that is a great brand, and if you buy their stuff, you're better off buying directly from the company versus buying it at the stores. So another tip for you. Now, tip number 9 is to join a warehouse store. So I've already talked about Costco quite a few times in this video. That is the one that I know. It's a huge savings. It's only $60 for the entire year to be a member. It is so worth it. So if you don't have a membership to something like Costco, then and you do have one available locally, you definitely want to hop on it and just get your membership, because there's so much that you can get from that is usually much cheaper. And the last tip number 10, is when it comes to protein, start eating more plant proteins. Specifically, start eating more beans. Not only is it going to be cheaper, it's also very filling, and is generally considered better for you and for your health, for your heart health, certainly for inflammation, and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so those are my 10 tips to help you eat healthy on a budget. If you want more tips to help you, I have an article on my website. It covers 22 tips in total, so I will add a link to that in the video description. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, and of course I would appreciate it if you share this with anybody else that would benefit from this information. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye bye.